Shalom, everyone, and I want to welcome you to Wow equals Words of Wisdom number 32. Be aware and pay attention to what is going on in your life. Have you ever waken up one day and, you just ask yourself, what is going on? I know many of us have asked that very question about our own lives when it seems like everything is just, you know, spiraling out of control. And really, what you're asking is, when did my life get in this position? you know, what was the door that was open to allow these events to start taking place? And a lot of times, if you're really, honest with yourself, you don't know when it happened, whenever it was. If you have, something going on in your life that you don't like it, and it's having a negative effect on your life, it's messing up your life, it's bringing you to a place of maybe judgment, spiritual judgment, or destruction. And you're like, how did I get here? Well, a lot of times we kind of go through life on autopilot, and we don't pay attention to what is going on. We don't pay attention to what is taking place in our lives. We just kind of go through our lives, going through the motions without living our life with a purpose. And when you live your life that way, it really opens up doors for spiritually for the enemy to get in. He's like, oh, you're not paying attention. And you get blindsided. And he's able to get in. He's able to get a foothold. And once he gets a foothold, and he's able to get in through that crack, through that crevice, through that entryway, through that doorway, and he's able to set up shop. And a lot of times it's through, the things that you're already struggling with, that you're already having a problem with, that you didn't, pay attention to when it first started happening. And, we're in this time of prayer and fasting, those of you who are doing the Daniel fast along with me. And one of our prayer focuses is mental, emotional, and physical healing, praying for that for us individually and collectively as the people of the Most High Yah. And, when you think about that, physical, mental, emotional healing, physical, mental, and emotional healing, you think about all of the ways that people are, are broken, and the things that people have dealt with throughout their lives that have brought them to a place of brokenness, to a place where they're physically sick, spiritually sick, mentally sick, emotionally sick. And there was a time where all of that started, but they weren't aware. They weren't paying attention. And, I want to, bring a focus to us learning to be aware of what is taking place in our lives, that we start paying close attention to what is happening in our lives. Because when you start paying attention to what is happening in your life, when you really start focusing on where you are, how you're progressing spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, then you'll begin to see whether you are, doing well, whether you're getting worse and going backwards, whether you're stagnant, whether you are making poor choices and bad decisions, whether you're living in sin, practicing sin actively, continuously, okay? Whether you have an addiction, whether you have a distraction and an addiction, you know, um, whether you're addicted to distractions, that has brought about some of this brokenness, that you haven't been able to move beyond or be delivered from. And a great way to really be aware and pay attention to what's going on in your life is to keep a journal. You know, one of the things that I do, because when they first told me, oh, you've got high blood pressure way back in 2008. Um, the first thing that they do is they tell you, you need to start paying attention to your keep a journal of your blood pressure. Keep a blood pressure count. And so I went out and got a machine, and I started, taking my blood pressure on a regular basis. Well, you think about just that. Most of the time, people don't get their blood pressure taken until they go to the doctor. And so the doctor is documenting your blood pressure, but you're not. Okay. So you really don't know how you're doing in between doctor's visits. You don't. You don't know how your body is. You don't know how um, your blood pressure is, whether it's up, whether it's down, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's out of control, until you go back to the doctor where they are documenting it. Well, we need to start documenting things like that for our own selves so that we can be aware, so that we can focus, so that we can pay attention to our own health. Okay. There are so many other people who are documenting what's going on in our lives. Okay. And they are having opinions of you. They're having opinions of me and what we should do and what we shouldn't do and how we should carry ourselves and how we shouldn't carry ourselves and things of that nature. But what about us documenting our own lives, paying attention to what we should be doing, being aware of, the issues that we have in our own lives and taking responsibility, you know? And so I really started taking that seriously because there's areas in my life that's out of whack. And, I was like, how did I get here? How did I get to the point where this is out of control? How did I get to the point where this is not where I used to be? Maybe at one point, this situation in your life wasn't out of control. You were doing well. You were doing good. You were progressing. You were growing. You were flourishing. But then all of a sudden, you looked up one day and you were not doing well in that area. You started moving backwards. You weren't growing. You weren't flourishing. Everything just turned out to be a mess. Will you stop paying attention? You weren't aware when chaos, that spirit of chaos got in, or that spirit of addiction got in, or that distraction got in. And next thing you know, you fell off the wagon. And so, I want to encourage you to start keeping a journal during this time of the Daniel fast. Keep a journal. Keep a journal of what's going on in your life. Write down what you have been praying about. Write down your prayer request, in a journal. Write down what the Most High Yah is showing you about yourself that you need to change, that you need to adjust, that you need to get rid of out of your life, that you need to start doing, that you haven't been doing. Um, Things, revelations that He has given to you. Write these things down. Write the spiritual things down that you are learning. Write what you're learning, as far as your physical body. This is a fast. So if there have been some changes that has been happening in your life, if you've lost weight, if your cholesterol has gone down, if your blood pressure has gone down, document those things. That was something that I really had to start learning how to do. And I started, especially during the Daniel fast, I really, journal what I'm eating. I journal what I'm eating. And, I write down, what my weight is. I write down what my blood pressure is. And I started noticing that my blood pressure is more consistent, consistently good, instead of it going up and down, up and down. So what does that do for me? It shows me, hey, these are the things that, that I need to eat on a more consistent basis to keep me in a consistently good place physically with my blood pressure. And see, you see how that helps you to, when you're more aware of what you're doing, when you're paying attention to what's going on in your life, you can make the adjustments that you need to make so that you can stay in balance, so that you can stay in a good place in your life. And that goes for spiritually. If you know that, hey, when you don't spend as much time in prayer like you need to, okay, and then you get off focus. Good morning, Sister Tammy. Welcome. And good morning, Yashu Yahudim. Yes, I will keep you and your family in my prayers. I sure will. um, you know, when you know that you spend more time in prayer, and that's when you're able to, get through the day, that things, when challenges come up, you're able to stand strong. You're able to, not give up. You don't throw in the towel because you've had that time in prayer. You've been in the word. You've been in the scriptures. You're saying what the Most High Yah is saying about your situation. And you notice that the challenge is there, the test is there, the trial is there, but you're able to, stand strong in the midst of that adversity because you've been, giving that focus, investing that time in the presence of the Most High Yah, in the word, in prayer, in intercession. And so you've been building up yourself on your most set apart faith. And you see the difference of when you're not paying attention spiritually, when you're not praying, when you're not in the word, when you're not in the presence of the Most High Yah, and you're not paying attention, you're not being aware spiritually, and the enemy comes in. It seems like he come in through a side door. He comes in through a back door. You get blindsided by what's going on. The next thing you know, how did I get here? And so we have to make sure that when we are going through our life, that we're not just going through on autopilot, just kind of like, and then next thing you know, our life is in a shambles. And then we've got to spend time trying to get out of the problem that we could have maybe prevented if we paid more attention, you know? And yes. You said, how can we become independent from the government? Ah, to leave the country. Oh, and see, even with that, the Ruah of Alua, we really have to seek the Most High Yah as to whether, how he wants us to, whether he wants us to leave or stay. There are some people that have left, okay, that have left, here and moved to other places, but we have really got to be led by the Spirit of the Most High Yah as to whether he wants us to stay here or to go and live someplace else. And we do have to really work hard to stay independent, of to being dependent upon the government. Um, you know, we really do have to fast and we have to pray. We have to be disciplined. And this is all a part of that. We have to be disciplined in our lifestyle. We have to pay attention to what's going on in our lives. We have to pay attention to what is happening around us, so that we don't get caught up, you know, so that we don't get caught up in, being dependent on somebody else. And I know it, when I was thinking about my physical health, I didn't realize how much you're dependent upon, what the doctor says and the medicines that they give you and all of these different things. And they know that. And I started, good morning. Good morning, Sister Natalie. Welcome. I started realizing that I had to start taking more responsibility for my own health, for my own life, for the things that I needed in my life. If I wanted to see, myself walk in better health. And if we want to see ourselves be in a place where we are more spiritually healthy, if we're more mentally healthy, where we are physically healthy, where we're emotionally healthy, we've got to pay attention. We just can't leave it up to everybody else to pay attention to our lives. If you got an issue, you got to start focusing on that issue and saying, okay, what do I need to do so that I can get better in this area? If you know that you are sick in an area of your life, if you know that you are experiencing destruction in an area of your life, if you got an area in your life that you are living below the abundant life that Yahushua HaMashiach came for you to have, and the enemy is killing you and stealing from you and destroying you in the area of your life, then that means you're not paying attention. Okay? You are not paying attention. You are not being aware of what is going on in your life. And so, it's not an easy thing to do, to catch up and to clean up areas of your life and allow the Most High Yah to come in and clean you and purge you. It is something that is needed. It's easier, it's harder to obtain, you know, um, a goal than it is to maintain it once you've obtained it. And so once you have obtained an area of your life, like a level of peace, a level of balance in your life, where you've come to the place where the Most High Yah really is trying to bring you to in a particular area of your life, then it is up to you, it is up to me to maintain that level of deliverance, that level of cleansing, that level of purging. Okay, you notice how Yahusha always said, "Go and sin no more." Okay, and see that right there, when I always hear that passage of scripture, I'm always like, you know what, that's really deep what he said. He's like, go and sin no more. He didn't say sit there, and do nothing. There was an action that had to take place. Go and sin no more. And a lot of times people, they go and they go right back to what they were doing. Okay, they go right back to what they were doing. They go right back to mindless living. They go right back to purposeless living, you know, and we've got to plan, we've got to prepare, we've got to execute that plan. We need to pray and ask the Most High Yah to show us, what we need to be doing, and then we need to execute it. It says in him we live and we move and we have our being. All right, and so it's time out for us to just for us just going through life, just kind of getting up, going to work, getting dressed, driving to work, driving back home, eating dinner, and doing that, and repeat, and doing it the next day, and doing it the next day. And the only time we get shaken out of that mundane routine, okay, is when something tragic happens in our lives, and then we're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here, what happened, how do I, and then we're frantic, when a lot of times the things that is taking place in our lives are things that we could have avoided in the first place. And so we have got to be more more purposeful and more aware in how we live our lives, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, so we don't get caught up in bondage through distractions and addictions and things that tear our lives down spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. And we never come to a place where we are growing because we're still caught up and tied up and bound up in the same things, day in, day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out, where we have spent most of our lives never moving forward, in our relationships with the Most High Yah, with our spouses, with our children, and we live a life of dysfunction, and we get so addicted to dysfunction, we don't even know what it's like to have, true peace, the peace of Yah that passes all human understanding, you know. And so we've got to, these are the last days, everyone. These are the last days. This is the time for us to, prepare spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. This is time out for us to just, be going through life just doing what we've done in the past. Life is changing, the world is changing around us, every day. Every day, something is being pushed on us and thrown on us and saying, accept this, accept that, accept this, take this in, consume this. And if you're not careful, you're taking in things that is sinful, that is wicked, that is wrong, that is against the commandments of the Most High Yah. And the next thing you know, because you haven't been paying attention, because you have not been aware, okay? Next thing you know, you're caught up and you're tied up and you're bound up in things that are, pulling you away from your relationship with the Most High Yah, pulling you away from living by the commandments of Yah and the rest of Scripture, and then as everything that, seems like it's been coming in a subtle way, when this start, next thing you know, boom, it's right in front of your face like this. And you're like, when did this happen? You don't want to be caught off guard. You don't want to be caught, like, when did this get stolen from me? When did I lose my peace? When did I lose my joy? When did I lose my sanity? But it can happen if you're not aware. It can happen if you're not paying attention. If you can, if you're just kind of like, I think I'll go for a walk outside now. Somebody's calling my name. That's how a lot of people are just kind of going through life. Like, like everything's okay. Like everything is okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I don't know if you've ever seen uh that little meme that said everything's fine, and there's fire coming up, and everything's burning all around the person. They're like, everything's fine, everything's fine. That's how a lot of people are. That's really how a lot of people are. And they keep thinking that if they don't have to do anything, they don't have to make any adjustments, they don't have to turn away from sin, they don't have to get cleansed, they can keep living how they're living, things are going to get better, but they don't have to pay attention. They don't have to be aware. They don't have to make any spiritual and natural adjustments in their lives. I can just keep on going along to get along. As long as I, conform to what's going on in this world, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be taken care of. That is a lie from the pit. Okay? We have to be aware of what's going on in our lives. And when you pray and ask the Most High Yah and say, hey, how did I get here? And you're sincere and you're genuine and you're humble and you're like, I really want to know how I got this way. I really want to know how I can drive this addiction out of my life, how I can drive this distraction out of my life, how I can slam the door on the enemy in this area of my life, how I can, put the spiritual caulking in the, in this crack where the enemy got in of my life. And how you're in your house and you see cracks, in corners in the walls of your house, and you see that and you go in and those of you who do work on your own house, and you take some caulking and you seal up that crack. That's what we need to be doing spiritually in our lives. where we see a hole, where we see a crack, where we see a crevice. You know, we always tell our children, make sure you lock the door. Don't just leave the door wide open. Well, a lot of times that's what we do. That's what we do for Satan, for Hasatan. We leave the door wide open. And he just comes in, he's like, they left the door open for me, man. Yes. And he just comes in and he starts wreaking havoc. He's not going to be nice. He's not going to ask for permission. But a lot of times he doesn't have to ask for permission because we leave the door open for him. We leave the door open for him because we're not paying attention, because of how we live our lives, because we're so codependent on everybody else to do things for us. And we don't want to take personal responsibility. And it's time out for us to stop being spiritually lazy. Okay? And for us doing our part. And it starts with being aware. You know, and me and my husband, we always explain to our sons, we're like, look, when you're standing out there, you know, because sometimes they take the bus to wherever they got to go. We're like, be aware. Just don't be out there on your phone, you know, just mindlessly listening to music or looking at a video or whatever. Be aware of what's going on around you. Don't have that stuff plugged in your ear where you can't hear what, you know, somebody walks up on you, you know, or you don't know what's going on here or there or whatever. Or somebody comes up and, you know, grabs what you have. You know what I'm saying? We say that all the time as women. We're like, my husband always tells me, you know, if I'm going to the store, he says, you know, make sure that you watch your purse. He always tells me that. Watch your purse. Make sure that you don't let somebody take it or steal it. He says, close up your purse. And see, that's what we do a lot of times. We leave our spiritual bags open. You know, we leave our spiritual bags open. We leave our spiritual wallet out. And the enemy just comes and takes it and steals it. And he gets into our lives and he sets up shop. He sets up residence. You know, we open the door of our minds to him by some of the things that we look at and we listen to, you know, and we're not paying attention to what we're looking at. We're not paying attention to what we're listening to. We're not paying attention to who we allow to have access to our lives and who we're hanging out with and the environments that we go into. And we don't pay attention to how those environments and those people and those things that we look at and we listen to leave spiritual dirt and spiritual residue on our lives. And we've got to pay attention because you can have spirits that transfer onto you. And you're like, why? When did I start thinking like this? When did I start acting like this? When did I start doing these things? And it's because you're not paying attention. You're not being aware of what's taking place in your life. And so now is the time for us to do that. Think about this today. Think about what you're doing. Think about what you're looking at. Think about what you're reading. Think about what music you're listening to. Think about what movies you're looking at. Think about what television shows you're looking at. Think about what you're looking at online. Think about who you're hanging with. Think about what you're eating. Think about what you're drinking. You know, think about how you are investing your time throughout the day, how you're managing yourself throughout the day. Think about how you're living your life. Think about how much time you're investing in prayer in the presence of the Most High Yah. Okay? How many, you know, scriptures that you do have you memorized, and now that you've memorizing them, are you actually applying them to your life? Are you living them out? You know, if we all started being more aware and paying attention to what is going on in our own lives, we would have less time to, you know, be judging and tearing each other down the way that we do, because we would be more cognizant of what's going on. We're like, oh, something got in there. I need to take care of that. I need to close that door because the enemy's trying to get in, or he got in and I need to take care of that. You know, our children wouldn't be out there, you know, acting crazy and living in levels of dysfunction, if we were paying more attention to them and teaching them the things that they need to know, whether they're, little and 5 years old, or whether they're 25 years old, and you still have access to them and can still speak into their lives. It's time for us to wake up, everybody. Okay? It's time for us to stop going through our lives just being mindless. We have got to, come to a place where we're paying attention to what's going on, that we're being aware. A lot of times we look at ourselves physically. We look at those shows like My 600-Pound Life. They didn't get 600 pounds overnight. It happened over time, and the door was open. And they always talk about, if you've ever looked at that show, hoarders, where the people are hoarding, when they have stuff piled up in their homes, and you can't even get to, and they're living in like a corner of a house because they have stuff piled up to here. Oh, that's nothing but a outward physical symptom of something that is wrong spiritually, inwardly. And that's just nothing but, an outward symptom of what's taking place in their life spiritually. Something happened. And usually when they talk to that person has gone through some level of trauma, and they're depressed and they're oppressed, and a demonic spirit got in. Oh, don't get it twisted. When you see things happening in your life and you're going through depression and you're going through oppression and something satanic activity is getting in there, you better wake up. We better wake up. Okay? And we've got to start paying attention to what is going on in our lives, what's going on spiritually. Like I said, one of our prayer focuses is mental, emotional, physical healing. Mental, emotional, and physical healing. So many of us, good morning, Kathy, welcome. So many of us, are mentally and emotionally and physically sick. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're doing the same thing and expecting things to come out different. And we've got to move away from insanity. If you want your life to move in a different direction, okay, you have got to start living your life differently. If you really haven't been living your life according to the word of the Most High Yah, you can't expect the promises of Scripture to be manifested in your life, because the Most High Yah has already laid out in the Torah, in the first 5 books of Scripture, that if we do what He has commanded us to do, then He will manifest blessings in our life. He is not going to bless our mess. Okay, He's not going to do it. And yes, the enemy, when you are starting to move closer to the Most High Yah, and you are walking in new levels of obedience to the Most High Yah, and you are breaking free from that spiritual bondage, he's going to do everything. Yes, it's morning here in the United States. Yes, it's morning here. Oh, it's in the afternoon in the Netherlands. Oh, okay. Well, shalom to you in the Netherlands. Yes, the enemy, when he's had a foothold in your life, when he's set up residence in your life, he's gotten comfortable, and you begin to serve him his eviction notice by by driving out those spirits of addiction in your life, those spirits of distraction in your life, those areas where he's just been, been comfortable. Oh, yes, he gets upset and he starts trying to clamp down, because he doesn't want to leave. These spirits have to have a home. They have to have a host, and these hosts are human beings. Okay. And so we've got to understand that we are in a spiritual battle all of the time. So we can't afford to be spiritually lazy. We can't be afford to be spiritually unaware. Okay, this is very, very important, everyone, in these last and evil days. We've got to step our game up. It's time out to, well, I'll deal with that next week. Guess what? Next week turns into 5 years from now, and you're looking back and you're like, oh my gosh, I was like this 5 years ago. And you're complaining about the same problems that you had 5 years ago, that you had 10 years ago, that you had 15 years ago, because you're not spiritually aware and you're not paying attention. And it could be just that quick. 10 years has gone past and you haven't moved any further. And yes, even when you're tired, even when you're like, oh my gosh, I can't go any further. That's when you got to hang in there. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't lose heart. Men ought to always pray and not faint. Pray without ceasing. Okay? That's the attitude that we've got to have if we're going to endure to the end. Okay? Those who endure to the end are the ones that are going to be saved. We can't give up. We can't throw in the towel. We can't wave the white flag. We can't surrender. We've got to hang in there. Submit yourself, therefore, to Yahuwah. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh unto Yahuwah, and he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Okay? Be afflicted and mourn and weep. That's that passage of scripture in James. He was talking to believers. He wasn't talking to people who are outside of the faith. Okay? Think about that. Now is the time where you have the breath of life in you, while you have the blood running warm through your veins. Now is the time for you to get it right. The decisions that we make now, okay, is what is going to affect what happens to us in eternity. Okay? What we do now is connected to what happens to us in eternity. Once we transition into eternity, it's too late. We're not going to be able to go back and say, oh, I'm sorry. I wish I could have, would have. I wish I had paid more attention. We've got to have that sense of urgency right now. Right now. Now is the time of Yeshua. Now is the time of salvation. We've got to be like that man in scripture that said, what must I do to be saved? We have to work out our soul's salvation, our soul's Yeshua, with fear and trembling. Don't be that person that has itching ears that wants their ears to be tickled. Okay? Learn how to digest the hard truth so that you don't die with the soft lie. Okay? I'm sharing this with you because I care. Because I care. And there's going to be a time that we're not going to be able to have these platforms. They're going to shut them all down at some point. So now is the time that we've got to, you know, encourage one another and provoke one another to love and good works and edify one another while we have to work now while it is day. For when nighttime comes, no man will be able to work. That time is coming soon. So think about this as you go throughout your day. Be aware and pay attention to what is going on in your life. Okay? I pray that as you pray about this, that you will humble yourself and really seek the face of the Most High Yah and start making those spiritual and natural adjustments that you need to make in your life today. So I just want to thank all of you for joining me for WOW equals Words of Wisdom number 32. And I pray that you all have a positive, powerful, and productive day. Shalom.